So free agency has absolutely been killed. I don't think that this is something that is going to come back in the future. I think free agency, from what we used to know, is gone. The NBA has killed its free agency period. I would be curious to know how in the world the NBA plans to rebound from the fact that to casuals, and again, I feel like I have to put a disclaimer out there anytime I say casuals, the casual NBA fan, which again is not a bad thing, I believe their favorite part about the NBA was the drama, the offseason, one big novella. And the fact that the NBA took away its potential most appealing piece to NBA fans, I'd be curious to know how that's going to affect the NBA as a whole. This new CBA has completely rendered free agency somewhat useless. The biggest splash moves yesterday was Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who is like a superstar role player, and a bunch of re-signings that we already knew were going to happen. When teams re-sign a player now, it's just more so reacting to how much money they got. It's not really reacting to, oh, wow, that was a surprising thing. We all knew it was coming. When you are a team like who has a player, it's like the Suns with Devin Booker, they're going to re-sign him. Like, they don't have a choice. They are going to bring him back. They're not just going to let him walk for nothing. So this idea that the NBA has basically rendered the novella part of free agency and of the offseason just out of the equation, even like when I see that the Lakers are stockpiling money for the 2027 offseason because there's a lot of free agents then, cool. Are we sure that most of those elite level free agents aren't just going to re-sign with their teams where they can make more money? So, like, Luka Doncic is eligible for an extension this offseason. I forgot who it was, one Suns fan account say, well, could Luka Doncic be headed to the Suns next year in free agency? First off, there's like no world in terms of money where that would work. And two, why wouldn't Luka just sign with the Lakers for more money? So it sucks. And the Suns were no exception to that. I can like the moves the Suns made while still being annoyed that free agency was basically rendered useless by the rest of the NBA because of the new collective bargaining agreement. Here's where I'm going to remind you guys that I was right. And here's why it's important for me to point out where I'm right, especially as a small channel, when I want you to continue to listen to me, watch me, consume my content. I mentioned I'd rather have Collin Gillespie on the Phoenix Suns than Chris Paul. And it wasn't a shot at Chris Paul. But part of my opinions are also based on what I think is going to happen. If I don't think it's going to happen, I will tell you very clearly. But the Phoenix Suns re-signing Collin Gillespie and basically telling Chris Paul get to stepping, it doesn't shock me. And it's why I feel like I have to say, like, guys, I was right here. I really like Chris Paul. And I'm really thankful for what he did. And honestly, I think he's a pretty underrated player when you talk about the best all-time point guards. But Chris Paul at 37 was already a slow, methodical player, play at your own pace, and that's okay. That was always Chris Paul's MO. He's going to let the game come to him. He is not going to be taking advantage of the game. Totally fair. No issues with that. But Chris Paul at 40 years old, it just never really worked. It was not going to work. It was going to be hard to push the tempo. It was going to be hard to get him to do the gritty things that a 40-year-old maybe doesn't want to do, and honestly, at the end of the day, can't do. So that's where when I talk about Chris Paul, I just don't think it was a good fit at this point in his career. What I think is a better fit, like you could still argue to me that Chris Paul's the better player than Collin Gillespie. I might push back a little because I think defensively, rebounding the basketball, even a little bit of playmaking, I might even say that I think Collin Gillespie's got the edge. But Collin Gillespie shot the ball at a 40% clip from behind the arc. He's not no He is not no guy to sneeze at. And so I just like the fit, which is so much about what the NBA is about, than I care about the actual player. And the fact that I have Collin Gillespie come off the bench, do all the little stuff, get rebounds, dive on the floor, shoot the 3 ball at a fairly high clip, that's what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for some 40-year-old to come in, play methodical. Like, I just don't see that at this point in his career. Also, is he going to be okay with taking a back seat to Jalen Green? I don't know. NBA, so much is about fit, and I thought Collin Gillespie fit this team better than Chris Paul did. And I think the Suns saw that too. And in a league where you're playing faster, you're getting younger, and you're getting bigger, Collin Gillespie is definitely not bigger, but faster, play with more tempo, be that gritty player that dives on the floor for loose balls, that young player still trying to prove himself in the NBA. That is exactly what I wanted to see. And so I just think that was a better fit for the Suns than Chris Paul. So I told you so. But, I think most of what Suns fans, they were clinging to the nostalgia of Chris Paul, not what Chris Paul could do for this team now. And so if I was Chris as well, I'd go to the Clippers, closer to the family, better chance to win. I think just a better scenario over there than Phoenix. And I just think Collin Gillespie was a better, just a better overall player for this team right now. All right. There was also another signing yesterday. Nigel Hayes-Davis. Nigel Hayes-Davis on his own doesn't say anything to me about what the Phoenix Suns are doing in free agency. But it's pretty clear that the Suns are eyeing a culture change with their new look roster. Matt Ishbia, Brian Gregory, to their credit, kept this promise. They said that this roster is going to be totally revamped, and when you play the Phoenix Suns, you're going to know you played them, whether you won the game or whether you lost the game. They want to push dudes around, they want to get bigger, they want to play with pace. But most of all, the Suns are changing the culture when it comes to this roster on this team. Look up and down this team. There are multiple guys who have something to prove, who are going to go the extra mile, who are not going to take the game for granted. And that leads me to a player like Nigel Hayes-Davis. He's 30 years old. He was in the NBA. He played 5+ years overseas, and it took him this long. He's 30 years old to get back to this moment. Do you think he's going to take that lightly? Jalen Green was the leading scorer on the 2 seed, and they said, get out of here. Dillon Brooks helped them with the rebuild, and as soon as they got to where they wanted to go, got the new shiny toy, they pushed him out the door. Collin Gillespie, he's still trying to find his way in the NBA. This team is filled with guys who have something to prove, who are not interested in the just be there guy. Everyone is bought in. Everyone has got something to prove. Combine that culture change with the fact that this team is just overall bigger. I'm not saying this team is going to win 50 games next year. Hell, because the Western Conference is so good, I'm not saying this team is even going to be a playoff team. But there is a drastic change in terms of what I believe is mentally and physically. The mental part is, look at Jalen Green, leading scorer on the second best team in the West, and they said, get out of here. Dillon Brooks was instrumental in their rebuild, and they said, we're good. Collin Gillespie is fighting to stay in the NBA and to get his first big contract next season. Nigel Hayes-Davis spent multiple years in the EuroLeague before he got his chance to come back and play in the NBA. Do you think he's going to take that for granted? Devin Booker is now a forgotten star. I saw something yesterday where someone tried to be funny or put out a hot take that he's just a glorified Tyler Hero. You don't think he's motivated to show and remind people what kind of a player he is? Mark Williams Sure, 15-10 on the Charlotte Hornets. Do it when a team is actually trying to win. This team is filled up and down with player after player after player. I mean, look at Malawach. He fell to 10. He shouldn't have. Look at Rasheer Fleming. He played on a college team that no one ever heard of. He's 21 years old when the season starts. He's got something to prove too. Up and down this roster, there's a drastic culture change in bought in, and everyone's got something to prove. And it is in everyone's best interest to lean into each other so that this team can reach a collective goal that is satisfactory to everyone. And then you look at the physical aspect of this team. This is a gigantic team. This team went from being one of the smaller, easier teams to push around in the NBA to what is one of the bigger lineups in the NBA and overall just going to be fun. This was put out by my guy, Sam Cooper, who joined me a lot on Fox Sports 910, back in my Fox Sports 910 days, via the Timeline podcast. Look at some of these sizes. It might not be filled with talent, but it's just a bunch of guys who, my guy 8-Bit Digital mentioned in the chat, it's just a bunch of guys who you're going to get a whole lot of effort from. And this team last year lacked just that, effort. But look at this roster physically. Rasheer Fleming, 6'9", 7'5" wingspan. Nigel Hayes-Davis, 6'8", 7'3" wingspan. Oso Ighodaro, 6'10", 6'11" wingspan. Kamon Malawach, 7'1", 7'7" wingspan. That dude's a pterodactyl. Mark Williams, 7 foot, 7'6" wingspan. That is a massive front court. You're going to play this team, and like Matt Ishbia and Brian Gregory said before, and you're going to know they played them. Games are going to be in the 105s, 110s. I think gone are the days where you see a Suns team in like it was in the Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal era, where it's over by halftime. Yeah, the Suns are going to lose a lot of games this year. Probably more games, potentially. Actually, I don't think that's the case. I think the Suns are going to be better than they were last year. Still, that's not a playoff team, but I think they'll be better this year than they were last year. But let's say they go 42-42. They're going to, that math isn't mathing. 41-41. Let's say they lose 41 games. Suns had like 15 blowouts this year. I don't think they get blown out more than a couple of times like every team does. You're going to know you played this team. And I'm not gassing up this team thinking that they're an NBA Finals contender or a Western Conference Finals contender or probably even a semifinal team in the Western Conference. But can they be a frisky first-round team that scares a 1, 2, or 3 seed? Just scares them. Just gives them a little scare. A six-game series. Can they win 2 games? And then after that, it's a whole different idea of bought in. Players know that this team is serious. The young players came into their own. The Suns might not be better from a talent aspect on this team next year, but I think they're going to win more games. And it's going to be because of that one thing we continue to talk about, effort. So I think the Suns are mostly done in free agency. They got one more roster spot open. I bet they just bring back Jalen Bridges. But overall, I want to go after Ishbia and I want to go after Gregory, and I have multiple times before. I got to be honest. I like what they did, and they've got me bought in for now because I owe this team nothing, and I will continue to go after them if need be.